Hello, welcome to Wake Up Well. Happy Friday. I hope you've woken up well this morning. I'm Ruth. I'm going to be helping us look at Obadiah verse 1 to 14 today. And so I know we've been going over it for the last week, so I'm not going to read it out as it is the whole section. But just to sum up, we've had this whole Obadiah is writing out a prophecy that he's had from God about the people of Edom. Now, the people of Edom have rebelled against Israel. They used to be brothers back in the day. They've got a shared heritage. And what's happened is that Edom have been acting out their gripes against Israel. They've come in and they've murdered and stolen from the people of Israel. And what God is saying to them is that, it's summed up really nicely in verse 10, so I'm just going to read it out from there. So, because of the violence you did to your close relatives in Israel, you'll be filled with shame and destroyed forever. So it's pretty cheery for a Friday morning, I hope you agree. But I wanted to unpack this a little bit, and then I wanted to use it as a practical example of how we pray for those who hate and mistreat us in this day and age. So yeah, we're keeping it light, we're keeping it cheery. And so when we look at these Old Testament verses of God punishing people, and it happens fairly regularly, we talk about it quite a lot in our community. How do we marry this idea that we have of God now as being full of grace and mercy, and actually the God of second chances is the God that we know? And how do we look at it here and think, oh yeah, that's the same God. The people of Edom are being punished by this God who's, we would say, the God of second chances. And so when we think about this in our community, we often think about God's justice and God's mercy being married together. And I think often we can think that we're really offended by God's justice. So we see God in the Old Testament raining down his justice on people. And that looks like slaughtering people, wiping out cities, really horrible stuff, really deep stuff. But actually, we tend to say that that doesn't offend us. In our tiny human minds, the way we make sense of these things is that people do bad things, so people get bad things happening to them. And that kind of makes sense to us. Like, we're quite happy with that. At the end of films, when the bad guy dies, or the bad guy is punished, or doesn't get his own way, that kind of makes us feel alright. But actually, we say we think we're offended by this, but I think what we're more offended is at God's mercy. We're more offended at the bad guy getting a second chance. And we're more offended by people not getting what they deserve. We're more offended by God's mercy. So what does that tell us today about how we should feel about this, how we should look at these things? And I think when we read these passages, when we look at what God's done to people, and we look at his justice, what it should actually make us think is that, oh wow, God, look at how much mercy you've shown me. I know how sinful I am, I know all of the terrible things I've done, and when I look at the past, when I look at the Old Testament, I know what I should deserve from that. And I tell you, it's not pretty. But when I look at what God's done now, he pours out his mercy in such a way that I don't have to deal with the things, like I don't have to deal with the repercussions of the things I've done wrong. And when I look at these passages of God's justice, actually what it should do is make me thankful for God's mercy. So how does that mean practically? That when people are horrible to us, it does happen, people are nasty, people hate us, people mistreat us, what do? Well, God says we should pray for them. And I think part of that really helps to remember the mercy we've been shown. So partly we need to remember the mercy that God's shown to us, and then we need to put that onto that other person. We need to show them mercy as well. And God says to pray for them. I don't know if you've ever been in a position where someone has wronged you somehow, and it really hurts. And then you remember that you need to pray for them. And that really it almost hurts in your stomach, that kind of root of bitterness just says, no, I shouldn't pray for them. Why do I need to pray for them? Ugh, no, it's too hard. And can I tell you, when that happens, that is when you need to pray for them the most, because it changes something within you. So sometimes you really need to force yourself to pray God's mercy upon that person. Pray for yourself in that situation, that you would see them gracefully, with God's grace, not with our own human grace and our own human view of justice. But when you feel that root of bitterness, can I just urge you guys to really pray? But so thank you for listening. I hope that you take that into this weekend, that you're looking at people in your own life who you're like, no, I just avoid praying for them because it hurts too badly. And actually that this weekend you take a bit of time, sit and listen to God and pray for those people. Okay, I hope you have a great day. Thanks for listening.